is the first emperor's tomb. And it's at the center of what is thought to be the largest burial complex in.
For more than 2,000 years, the Terracotta Army has remained hidden beneath the dry plains surrounding Xi'an, China. Thousands of full-sized clay soldiers stand in complete silence, every face different, every warrior locked in eternal formation. People from around the world have admired them. Tourists have filled their cameras with photographs. Historians and archaeologists have spent decades examining them. But despite all that attention, almost nobody questioned what might be buried beneath them. That changed when explorer Albert Lin arrived with technology unlike anything previously used at the site. Advanced scanners originally developed for military operations. Reconnaissance drones capable of mapping terrain from above. Ground-penetrating radar powerful enough to see deep below layers of hardened earth. What those devices uncovered did not simply expand the story of the Terracotta Army, it completely transformed it. And when the results of those scans began circulating among experts, something strange happened. The archaeologists and historians who had dedicated their lives to studying this site suddenly became very quiet. Not because the discovery was minor, but because it was overwhelming, disturbing. The kind of revelation people hesitate to discuss openly. Because the Terracotta Army may not be what the world has always believed it to be. It may not be a monument honoring an emperor. It may not even be a masterpiece of ancient art. Instead, it could be something far darker. A massive cover placed over one of the most terrifying secrets in ancient history. And Albert Lin may have been the first person to pull that cover away. What he discovered beneath those clay warriors changed the entire narrative. Stay with us, because by the end of this story, you may never see the Terracotta Army the same way again. And before we continue deeper into this mystery, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because the truth hidden beneath the Emperor's tomb is far more shocking than most people realize. What Albert Lin's technology uncovered beneath the Terracotta Army. To understand what Lin discovered, you first have to understand how the Terracotta Army was created, and the truth behind its construction is not inspiring. It is brutal. Historical accounts say that Qin Shi Huang, the emperor who unified China under a single rule, ordered the construction of his enormous burial complex soon after rising to power. A normal tomb was never enough for him. He envisioned an underground kingdom, a complete reflection of the world above, designed to serve him forever after death. But creating something on that scale required an unimaginable workforce. Ancient records claim that nearly 700,000 laborers were forced into the project. These were not elite soldiers or captured enemies. Many were ordinary citizens, farmers, craftsmen, blacksmiths, engineers, stoneworkers, and laborers taken from towns and villages across the empire. Some were accused of crimes. Others were selected simply because their skills were useful. Almost none of them had a choice. They were transported to the construction site near present-day Xi'an and placed under strict control. The project continued for almost 40 years, 4 decades of relentless labor. The workers survived under brutal conditions, watched constantly by guards, and given barely enough food to continue working. Their lives became an endless cycle of exhaustion, quotas, and punishment. For countless workers, entering the emperor's construction site meant never returning home. Once you became part of the project, you stayed there forever. For centuries, that was all historians really knew. The story sounded terrible, but distant, the kind of thing buried in ancient texts and forgotten by time. Then Albert Lin arrived with technology capable of turning those old stories into physical evidence. The conditions surrounding his access to the mausoleum were highly unusual. Foreign researchers are rarely allowed near the most protected areas of the complex, and many archaeologists who spent years working in China never received the permissions that Lin did. He was allowed to operate LiDAR-equipped drones that fired laser pulses to create detailed 3D maps of the landscape. He also used sophisticated ground-penetrating radar systems capable of detecting hidden chambers and structures buried deep underground. These are the same kinds of tools often used to locate tunnels and underground facilities in military environments, and now they were being used at one of the world's most important archaeological sites. But that access came with serious conditions attached. Every scan was watched carefully by government authorities. Military escorts stayed with Lin throughout the entire operation. Every drone launch had to be individually authorized. Every area chosen for scanning was carefully reviewed beforehand and kept under strict supervision. Chinese officials did not treat the mausoleum like a simple archaeological landmark. They handled it like a protected state secret. Whatever rested beneath that site was clearly considered important enough to guard even now. Then the first scan results started coming in. Beneath the famous terracotta pits, the radar began detecting enormous empty spaces buried deep underground, areas where there should have been nothing except solid packed earth. These formations were clearly artificial. Sharp angles, straight lines, defined passageways, hidden chambers, underground corridors. Some sections appeared to have collapsed naturally over time, but others looked different. They seemed intentionally sealed, as though someone had deliberately buried the entrances to make sure they could never be reopened. And many of these underground structures did not exist on any official map. As the scans pushed deeper below the surface, the findings became increasingly disturbing. Beneath the perfectly arranged clay soldiers, beneath the engineered floors and drainage systems, the radar uncovered dense, chaotic masses clustered tightly together. These were not architectural supports, not walls, not storage rooms. The formations were too irregular, too compressed, too tangled together. Researchers examining the data immediately recognized the pattern. It matched what archaeologists often see in sites containing large quantities of buried human remains. What the scanners were revealing was horrifying. Underneath the Terracotta Army were mass graves, not a single burial site, but multiple locations where enormous numbers of people had been dumped together underground. And there was no indication of ceremony, respect, or ritual. The bodies appeared mixed together carelessly, overlapping and piled into confined spaces. The arrangement suggested people had died where they stood before being buried quickly, almost mechanically, as if human bodies were nothing more than another obstacle in the construction process. And suddenly, the darkest ancient accounts no longer sounded exaggerated. According to historical writings, laborers involved in the emperor's mausoleum were often killed once their section of work was completed. The reasoning was simple and ruthless. Dead workers could never reveal the secrets of the tomb. They could never expose hidden entrances, underground traps, or the location of buried treasures. Secrecy mattered more than human life. And now the scans appeared to support that claim. But the most chilling discovery had not even surfaced yet. In several underground areas, the radar detected evidence of sudden tunnel collapses. The soil compression patterns did not resemble slow, natural erosion. Instead, they showed violent structural failure, the kind produced when ceilings cave in all at once. Near those collapse zones, the scans also identified shapes resembling tools, hammers, chisels, equipment abandoned exactly where workers would have been using them moments earlier. That detail changed everything. It suggested these laborers were never marched out and executed publicly. They were buried alive inside the tunnels they had built. The exits were sealed behind them. The ceilings collapsed above them. They were abandoned underground, in total darkness with no escape route. And overhead, piece by piece, the Terracotta Army was constructed, silent, motionless, and perfectly ordered, standing above the remains of the people who made the emperor's vision possible. The evidence suggested a horrifying system. One section of the mausoleum would be completed. The workers who understood that section would then disappear. A new group would arrive for the next stage, unaware of what had happened before them. Again and again, the cycle repeated over decades of construction. By the time the mausoleum was finally complete, nobody alive understood the full layout anymore. The secrets of the tomb had been buried alongside the workers themselves. When Albert Lin's team completed their final scans, the conclusion became impossible to ignore. The Terracotta Army was not protecting a peaceful emperor in the afterlife. It was standing above a vast graveyard filled with the very people forced to build it. What appeared magnificent on the surface was hiding unimaginable suffering below, and even that was only the beginning, because deeper underground, the scans revealed something even stranger: a hidden burial, lost writings, and clues pointing toward the Terracotta Army's true purpose. Out of everything uncovered during the investigation, one discovery stood apart from all the others. It was not a tunnel or a mass grave. It was a single burial chamber hidden farther underground than anything else. And its placement made one thing immediately clear. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to ensure it would never be discovered. The radar identified a small, isolated chamber buried beneath the worker tunnels. It appeared older than the structures surrounding it. In fact, parts of the mausoleum above seemed intentionally designed around this hidden space, almost as though the entire upper complex had been constructed specifically to conceal it. This was deliberate. Whoever built the tomb wanted this chamber buried beneath layers of earth, stone, and clay so deep that nobody would ever reach it. Inside the chamber were the remains of a young man, believed to have died in his early 20s. Unlike the scattered bodies found in the mass graves, this skeleton had been carefully positioned. The limbs were arranged deliberately, almost ceremonially. Around the remains were valuable objects, expensive materials, and rare artifacts far beyond anything an ordinary worker could have owned. This was someone important, someone whose burial had been handled with care, and yet someone else had also wanted him erased from history completely. Then came the most disturbing detail of all. Embedded deep inside the skull was a bronze arrowhead. This was not a battlefield injury, not an accident. It was an execution. Direct, intentional, final. Someone had killed this young man at close range before hiding his body in a secret chamber meant to remain undiscovered forever. So who was he? Historians have long been puzzled by missing records connected to Qin Shi Huang and his family. Ancient texts mention that the emperor fathered many sons, yet only a small number are clearly accounted for in surviving history. The others simply disappear. No explanations, no recorded deaths, no exile documents. They are briefly mentioned and then vanish completely. And suddenly, the hidden burial began pointing toward a terrifying possibility. The chamber's location, the ceremonial treatment of the body, the valuable objects buried beside him, the extreme secrecy surrounding the tomb. Together, they suggested one chilling theory. This young man may have been one of the emperor's own sons, someone viewed as a threat to the throne, someone who had to disappear forever. Not publicly, not with official announcements or recorded executions. Instead, he may have been removed quietly, erased so completely that even history forgot him existed. The burial chamber itself seemed to support that terrifying possibility. It was small and claustrophobic, almost prison-like in design. There were no grand decorations, no inscriptions praising the dead, no ceremonial offerings meant to guide a soul into the afterlife. The space did not feel like a royal tomb. It felt like confinement. Some evidence even suggested the young man may have been held there before his death, trapped underground, isolated from sunlight, and cut off from the outside world long before the final execution took place. And then, above him, the Terracotta Army was built. Thousands of perfectly arranged clay soldiers standing directly over the hidden chamber, ensuring that nobody would ever think to dig deeper beneath the spectacle above. But if the buried figure truly was a forgotten prince, he was only one piece of a much larger secret hidden beneath the mausoleum. In sealed chambers near the outer sections of the complex, researchers uncovered bundles of ancient bamboo scrolls, thin bamboo strips tied together with cord and covered in ink writing, the standard form of written record during the Qin dynasty. The discovery alone was extraordinary. After more than 2,000 years underground, the sealed environment had preserved many of the scrolls far better than anyone believed possible. At first, some appeared ordinary. They contained supply inventories, work schedules, lists of laborers assigned to construction zones, administrative paperwork tied to a massive state project. These records confirmed what historians had long suspected. The mausoleum was operated with astonishing organization and precision. Every shipment was documented. Every worker was tracked. Every task was recorded. The bureaucracy behind the project was relentless. But deeper within the collection, the tone changed dramatically. Other scrolls contained written confessions, page after page of individuals admitting to offenses so minor they barely qualified as crimes at all. One laborer confessed to harboring disloyal thoughts. An artisan admitted to speaking carelessly about the emperor. A scholar acknowledged sympathy for philosophies. The state had forbidden. The accusations were vague. The evidence almost non-existent. And yet every confession ended the same way. The accused accepted punishment without resistance. These were not records of justice. They were tools of fear. People confessed because refusing to confess was likely even worse. The documents transformed executions into official procedure. Murder became administration. A man could be executed one day, and his death would be recorded with the same cold efficiency as a delivery of stone or clay arriving the next morning. Violence was not hidden inside this system. It was organized, catalogued, processed like paperwork. Other recovered scrolls appeared to confirm events historians had argued about for centuries. Some listed the names of scholars executed for spreading ideas the emperor considered dangerous. Others detailed the destruction of books, recording which texts were burned and which were spared only because they held technical or military value. To the emperor, knowledge itself was dangerous. Any idea capable of challenging authority had to disappear, and the people connected to those ideas disappeared with it. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of these writings was not simply what they described. It was the emotionless tone in which everything was recorded. There was no grief, no anger, no regret. Executions appeared in the exact same dry language used for supply reports. A prisoner was killed on Tuesday. 40 wagon loads of clay arrived on Wednesday. The handwriting remained unchanged. The formatting stayed perfectly consistent. Death had become routine. It was simply another administrative task inside the empire's machinery. And when all these discoveries are viewed together, the hidden prints, the mass graves, the forced confessions, the burned books, the sealed tunnels, the meaning of the Terracotta Army changes entirely. Those clay soldiers are no longer just ancient artwork. They are guards, silent sentries placed above the darkest secrets of Qin Shi Huang's reign. Below them lie mass graves filled with laborers who knew too much, a murdered royal hidden where nobody would ever search. Records describing a government built on fear, silence, and the disposable value of human life. And perhaps the most unsettling part is this: the beauty of the Terracotta Army may have been intentional. Its perfection pulls attention upward toward discipline and order while hiding the suffering buried underneath. The soldiers do not preserve history. They conceal it, and beneath their frozen expressions rests the true human cost of empire. But even those horrors are only part of the story, because the Terracotta Army and everything beneath it form just the outer layer of the mausoleum complex. The true center, the emperor's tomb itself, still remains sealed. And what may exist inside could be the most extraordinary discovery of all, uncovering the hidden world beneath the Terracotta Army. The famous clay soldiers are only a small section of the larger burial complex. They occupy several pits along the eastern edge of the site, but beyond them stretches an enormous necropolis, unlike almost anything else from the ancient world. Archaeologists estimate the full complex covers nearly 50 square kilometers. To understand the scale, that is larger than the entire island of Manhattan, and most of it still remains untouched underground. The reason archaeologists have avoided large-scale excavation is not lack of interest. It is fear of destroying the site itself. When the first terracotta warriors were uncovered during the 1970s, many still carried their original paint: bright reds, deep blues, vivid greens, rich purples. Their surfaces looked almost lifelike, but once exposed to open air, the colors began disappearing almost immediately. Paint curled away from the clay. Pigments flaked apart. In some cases, centuries of detailed artistry vanished within hours. The lesson was devastating. Excavating the tomb could destroy the very history researchers hoped to preserve. Because of that, modern investigations rely heavily on non-invasive technology. Ground-penetrating wire radar sends electromagnetic waves beneath the earth and measures the reflections from hidden chambers and buried structures. Electrical resistivity surveys analyze how current moves through soil, exposing variations in density. LiDAR systems generate detailed three-dimensional terrain models. Satellite imaging monitors subtle changes in vegetation and soil patterns that may reveal structures underground. Then advanced computer modeling combines all of this information into a detailed underground map, all without disturbing the soil itself. And what those technologies have revealed is astonishing. The necropolis is not a scattered collection of isolated tombs. It is a fully connected underground system. Hidden corridors link separate chambers together. Long passageways extend across the site in organized patterns. Grid-like layouts repeat with remarkable precision. Nothing about the construction appears random. The engineering is sophisticated, deliberate, and centrally planned. Within the complex, scans have identified layered platforms stacked on top of one another, suggesting the mausoleum expanded through carefully organized construction phases. Retaining walls stabilized surrounding earth while new. Drainage systems redirected water away from vulnerable areas, protecting buried structures from flooding. The builders understood hydrology, soil pressure, and structural design at an astonishing level, in some ways rivaling modern engineering practices. And even the partially excavated areas have revealed incredible discoveries. Beyond the soldiers themselves, archaeologists have uncovered detailed bronze chariots, life-sized horses with individually sculpted features, statues of acrobats and entertainers captured mid-performance, and clay court officials dressed in ceremonial robes. One excavation revealed miniature bronze birds arranged beside an artificial river. Another uncovered suits of stone armor connected piece by piece using copper wire. The emperor was not constructing a simple tomb. He was building an entire underground world. A parallel empire complete with government officials, entertainment, military protection, and even recreated natural landscapes. And at the very center of it all stands the one structure nobody has ever entered: the emperor's burial mound itself. Rising roughly 76 meters above the surrounding plain, the massive earthen pyramid has remained sealed for more than 2,000 years. Ancient historical writings describe what supposedly exists inside, and the descriptions sound almost impossible. According to those texts, the ceiling of the burial chamber was decorated with constellations formed from pearls and precious gems, creating an artificial night sky. The floor supposedly contained rivers and seas made from flowing mercury, designed to recreate the waterways of China itself. Mechanical systems allegedly kept the mercury moving, imitating real currents and tides. For centuries, historians dismissed these stories as exaggeration or myth. They argued no ancient civilization could have built something so elaborate. Then modern soil analysis changed everything. Samples collected from the soil surrounding the burial mound revealed something astonishing: mercury concentrations far beyond normal environmental levels. Even more striking, the mercury was not spread evenly through the ground. It appeared in concentrated patterns that closely matched the locations where ancient writings claimed underground mercury rivers once flowed. Suddenly, stories long dismissed as legend no longer seemed imaginary. They may have been describing something real. Mercury is highly poisonous. Long-term exposure can severely damage the brain, nervous system, and internal organs. Its presence around the tomb creates a terrifying double effect. On one hand, it supports the ancient historical accounts. On the other, it acts as a natural barrier, protecting the burial chamber itself. Opening the mound could release dangerous levels of toxic mercury vapor. That danger is one of the main reasons Chinese authorities have refused to authorize a full excavation. The risk, to both archaeologists and the artifacts inside, remains too great for current technology to safely handle. And the deeper researchers study the mound from the outside, the stranger it becomes. Perimeter scans suggest the underground architecture is layered vertically, with chambers stacked above one another and linked through narrow passageways. Soil analysis around the foundation shows evidence of remarkably advanced engineering. Different layers contain carefully controlled densities and materials, implying the builders intentionally reinforced the structure to support the enormous weight pressing down from above. Even without entering the tomb, one fact is becoming increasingly obvious: whatever lies inside was built to last forever. If Qin Shi Huang truly believed his power would continue after death, then every detail surrounding the mausoleum was designed to make that dream permanent. The soldiers existed to defend him. Officials were buried to govern beside him, Entertainers were included to serve him. The Mercury rivers recreated the empire he once ruled. Nothing was accidental. Among the estimated 8,000 figures, no two faces are exactly alike. Some have broad foreheads and heavy brows. Others have narrow faces with sharp cheekbones. Some wear long mustaches extending past the chin, while others are clean-shaven or carry short-trimmed beards. The scans suggest hidden channels and chambers beneath the emperor's tomb, possibly confirming the ancient stories about underground Mercury rivers. Surrounding the mound is a massive underground city filled with halls, tunnels, chariots, soldiers, entertainers, and sculpted landscapes, all built to recreate Qin Shi Huang's empire for eternity. The construction required enormous resources and hundreds of thousands of workers. Historical accounts claim many laborers and artisans were later killed to keep the tomb's secrets hidden. Build, bury, silence. Today, the tomb remains sealed because opening it could release toxic mercury and destroy priceless artifacts. But modern scans confirm the complex is real, vast, and incredibly advanced. More than 2,000 years later, the emperor's defenses still work. The mercury remains, the chambers stay sealed, and the Terracotta Army still stands guard over secrets the world cannot fully uncover.